So we will be beginning this morning session of capacity building program. And before beginning, I'll be most honored to share a brief profile of our respected resource person of this session, Dr. Shivaji Banerjee. Dr. Shivaji Banerjee is associated with the Department of Commerce in St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, and he has done his PhD from University of Bardhaman. He has been widely acknowledged in academic field and is strongly recommended for publication. His current research is focused predominantly on the modeling of behavioral trajectories exhibited in organizations. He is currently investigating the psychological response of employees in order to unfurl a causal relationship with reference to their environmental cues. He has 13 plus years of experience in teaching and is an accomplished professor of management. He is also associated not only with St. Xavier's College but with capacity of guest lecturership with the Department of Commerce in Calcutta University, Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, Institute of Business Management, Jadavpur University, and School of Management Sciences, Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology. So I welcome you, sir. And also, sir has varied experiences of doctoral research as well. And under him, 4 persons are right now registered as PhD candidates. Sir, you have also published various papers in national and international reputed journals. I welcome you once again, sir. And before beginning the session, I'll invite Dr. Alka Lalhal, Assistant Professor and Course Co-Coordinator of this Capacity Building Program, to extend a formal welcome address to sir. Over to you, Alka, ma'am.
Thank you, Siddharth, for this introduction of Dr. Banerjee. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you, sir, Dr. Banerjee, to this capacity building program on behalf of our Department of Management Sciences. Sir, it's an honor and a privilege to have you. I'm sure the participants will have much to learn from your extant experience and in research and academics. So without much further ado, I would request Dr. Banerjee to kindly take over the session. Sir, over to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
So, I would thank the organizers of Mahatma Gandhi Central University for giving me this opportunity to present today my views, my, opinions and my experiences. This is not just teaching, but I would say a little beyond that, because my experience of PhD, my doing PhD myself, as well as guiding scholars, brought me to this essential understanding. And even the UGC in its current regulation has made it mandatory for all of us to really focus on the ethics and misconduct part, because some way we are in a quality quantity tangle. We are all obsessed, we are all thinking of publishing because that is the need of the hour for our promotion, for our career advancement. But at the same time, many of us at times seem to be misled with regard to what are the issues that may crop up. And I would thank Dr. Pavnesh Kumar for really conceptualizing such an interesting area, which is of immense importance, because my experience in PhD coursework programs of different universities has been that research ethics is just one session for 1 hour or 2 hours in the 2-week or 3-week program, and only focus is given to methodology. But today, methodology is equally important, or rather a little less important than ethics and misconduct, because whether you talk of plagiarism or whether you talk of other issues, if those are not settled, if those are not approved, then your publication does not have any benefit. Your publication seems to have no impact. So on this note, I would like to begin my session today. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible, sir.
And one more thing is, I would expect interaction from the audience, because I'm addressing faculty, I'm addressing research scholars. So it should not be just, a one-way communication, but rather an interaction where we can learn from each other. You can present your practical difficulties also, and we can, benefit more than that. So as you can see, my topic is publication misconduct, basically, but I thought about research ethics being founded on the grounds of publication. And before we know what misconduct is, we need to know what conduct is, isn't it? Because we cannot directly go to misconduct. We cannot go to unethical behavior unless we know what ethics is all about. So on that note, we begin. And I would, go ahead with my presentation. I would speak for around an hour in terms of the PPT, and the rest 20 minutes that we have possibly after that would be interaction and discussion. And you are free to ask questions or clarify doubts as and when you think is important. Now, how the world of research is. The world of research is a maze. It's a maze. It's something where we see that sensitization is lacking. We all know that, we are all obsessed with research. We have all heard of ethics in research, but at times we tend to forget what they are all about. What does it connote? Self-regulation is the key in the world of academic freedom and knowledge creation. See, we have the AICTE, we have the UGC, and we have other bodies who coordinate and monitor our research work. But I think the basis of any research is self-regulation. What is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is unethical, that has to be decided by the person himself first. External regulation is not enough, or may not be enough, or will not be enough unless one is concerned, one is conscious, and one is very, very, I would say, particular, meticulous of what his own understanding is. And this topic of research or ethics in research and publication ethics is more important when we move to a critical reflection of sensitization about ethics. Because see, it is not just that just by attending a workshop or by attending a capacity building program, we can become highly ethical. But possibly what we can do is we can sensitize ourselves to the world of ethics, to the understanding about ethics, so that we know that if we fail to be ethical, if we fail to really, equip ourselves with the requirement, then what can be the possible consequences? So I would look at the entire capacity building program that's going on in your university for 2 weeks as self-training. Here there is no much methodology, there is no SPSS, there is no Amos and R, but it is more about self-awareness. It is about self-training, because I feel that if one can do that well, one would possibly be able to accomplish as a researcher better. Now, what are the possible kinds of research misconduct? We will deal with it in detail later, but I am just mentioning it at this point because it is connected to my discussion on ethics. And we know that these are the very common, dimensions of research misconduct. And many other resource persons possibly have already taken up these issues. And we will touch upon the understanding of research misconduct in a more comprehensive manner as we progress further into our discussion. Now, where does the problem lie? The problem lie in what I was telling at the beginning, academic freedom. As academicians, we possibly enjoy a lot of freedom. Whether we are teaching in class or whether we are a researcher, we have a lot of freedom. There is no intrusion from external, agencies or people. But still, external regulation has to be there because, our moral intentions, even if they are very good, but at times what happens is we tend to drift apart because we are human beings. And as the Bhagavad Gita says that, there is, the notion of being a saint as well as a demon in us. Okay, so we must see that the demonishness in ourselves do not come up much. So there is a need for the external regulation to, monitor or keep a watch, keep a vigilant eye on our behavior. And technology, the last 10 to 20 years, the way technology has really grown, the way internet and, information has been accessible to us, there is a chance that unless we really know about self-regulation, technology can be put to bad uses. I still remember a very accomplished researcher in West Bengal saying once in a session that probably the internet is the biggest enemy of research. Now, when this was said maybe 10 years back, I did not understand it that much, because 10 years back, our dependence on internet was not that much. But today, when a class 1 student or a student of high school writes an essay in English, he possibly does not think that much, but first wants to Google the topic that he has been asked to write the essay on. So I really feel that yes, there is a creative gap that is happening. There is a, I would say, mind that is getting totally subdued because of excessive information and the internet that we all can so easily access. Does anybody have any views on this about the internet being an enemy of research? Has anyone thought in that way? Or what are
Absolutely, sir.
your views?
Absolutely. I certainly believed in this thing, sir, that our reliance on internet has actually enforced a world on us where we do not think much.
Exactly. And do you think that someone who doesn't think much, however he can be equipped with all the technology and knowledge of research, will he be able to be an accomplished researcher in any field? Social science, biological sciences, medicine, law, management, commerce, humanities. I don't think that is possible if you cannot think properly. So, there is, at the right hand side, you can see something called the fraud triangle. Now, the fraud triangle, you can see, has 3 components. How does one commit a fraud? Now, however saintly you can be, you can commit a fraud, misconduct. Number 1, when you get the opportunity for doing it. Okay, so this is the first instance. If there is no opportunity for wrong, then possibly people would not do that. But today, the opportunity for doing wrong is immense. Next, number 2 is what are the incentives. Now, by incentives, I mean the benefits. So when you do something in the shortcut method, what are the benefits that seem to come out of it? It can be an increment, it can be a promotion, it can be a career advancement. So these are the incentives that people get sometimes for doing wrong, what we call the second dimension of the fraud triangle. And the third one is about rationalizing misconduct. That is, we, despite surveillance, despite all the softwares that are available to check plagiarism, the extent of plagiarism that happens, there are times when we justify that we have done a wrong. And I will be showing you some slides, information, where people have given strange reasons why they committed some mistake, why they possibly could not, do research in the way they should ideally have done. So this shows that sometimes it is the rationality that can really be very, very harmful for a person. Something wrong with the screen suddenly?
Sir, actually, your presentation is not visible now. I think
Okay.
the casting of screen has stopped.
Yeah, yeah. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir, it is visible now.
Yeah, yeah. So we tend to rationalize misconduct. We tend to rationalize what we are doing wrong. And then we tend to justify why we have done wrong. Moving ahead is, there are different stakeholders. Research is not just a one-man show, but possibly an interface of research with various stakeholders who are involved in helping us to do research. And there is a concept called ethical gatekeeper, the person who bridges or who manages or who balances the relationship of research with the researcher, keeping all moral and ethical issues aside. Because at some point of time, we need to understand that the world of research has to be such where we are responsible to our external world. We are responsible to society. You know, research has a social cost. Don't look at research as something free. Research has a social cost. Research has a social consequence. So there has to be some responsibility that we need to show so that the research that we present, the research that we offer to society is not just a thesis, a 300-page document, but its implications, its benefits can be felt by people at large living in society. Now, I would like all of you to pay great attention to this particular slide, because the researches that we do as academicians, whether it's for our PhD or for our MPhil or maybe for any other degree or just a research paper, there are three stages or three purposes or three levels at which research, academic research, need to create an impact. The first part is the knowledge acquisition part. You know, any research begins with knowledge acquisition. You know, from childhood, we must be knowing, telling others that first thing that you know is to read. The first thing that you need to do is read. And what is that reading? The reading is about gathering information, understanding information, comprehension basically, and then remembering that. And once we acquire knowledge, the moment we move towards higher education, what we are trying to possibly do is deepening. There is a concept called Bloom's taxonomy. I don't know whether you are aware of that or not. Bloom's taxonomy says that the basic part of any education system is just to acquire information, understand them. But as you go higher up the hierarchy, you think of analyzing those information and applying those information. And the better you are at analyzing or applying those information, you can lead or reach a stage where you can contribute towards knowledge creation. And by knowledge creation, you know, when you go for aspire for a PhD degree, the most important thing that you possibly do is you create knowledge. You contribute your own work to the field of knowledge. And I think that is what merits a PhD. In many of the viva voce that I have seen, I have attended, of research scholars who are giving their final defense of their thesis at the open viva, the very common question that we often tend to ask researcher who is aspiring for a PhD is, what has been your contribution to the field of research for which you think you deserve a PhD? And that is what knowledge creation, contributing and evaluating outcomes would essentially imply. Anybody has any questions on these three stages?
Sir, no, sir, not any question. The slides are quite clear, sir. At least for me, I do not have a question on this slide, but I invite the participants if they have any questions.
Anybody has anything? Yes, I have made the slide in a manner that just not information, but sometimes, you know, you can remember. The way the slides have been made, I think knowledge acquisition, knowledge deepening, knowledge creation, these terms, I think you can remember. And I don't think these topics, this area in this approach has been dealt with by other teachers or resource persons till now. There's no repetition yet, I think.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah.
No repetition at all.
Because
Sir, sir,
my
excuse
approach
me,
has...
excuse me,
Yeah,
Siddharth,
please
sir.
say.
I have, excuse me. Sir,
Yeah,
good
please say.
morning to you. Very good morning to you. First of all, sir, I would like to ask a question to you that is concerned from the first page of your slides. That you are talking about to ethics. I think this is my own perceptions. Either you are satisfied or not. I am not thinking about you that. But I think ethics is universal in nature in case of its applicability. But to some extent, it is become the singularity level also. What is your suggestion about in this context?
Yeah, ethics is universal, definitely. But that something universal has to be brought to public domain. You have to sensitize. COVID is universal phenomena. COVID has happened all over the world. But don't you think every now and then, whether it is the ICMR or the government, has to constantly train and sensitize people so that they don't have fear? They go for testing, they go for vaccination, they go for, helping the society so that they can get rid of COVID. So anything, even if it is universal in character, there has to be a sensitization or training so that people can, be very, very curious to come out of its shackles and move towards a better society. So the purpose of this sensitization program is exactly that.
Sure, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot to you.
Now, just possibly we are ending our discussion towards research ethics and moving towards publication, conduct, and scientific integrity. Why is research ethics important? What is it, in the commonest possible manner, research ethics does? Number one, it is an obligation to honor the trust that colleagues place in them. So when we are a researcher, our colleagues, our scholars, our, university or college, they have great respect and regard for us. Because, like I said, it is something ethical. It is something where we can really show that we want to serve the public. Number three, it ensures sufficient knowledge is shared by all concerned. Dissemination of knowledge. Sharing of knowledge is what is called dissemination of knowledge, because irresponsible conduct in research can make it impossible to achieve a goal. So, like I said, stakeholders in research, the first part of it is obligation to oneself. The second part of it is obligation to the academic community. And the third part of it is obligation to the society at large. Because as a researcher, one has to accept the responsibility to behave ethically towards those who are directly or indirectly going to be affected by your research. I'll give examples from scientific research, from social science research later. But, we have a stakeholder. We should see that there is no ambiguity. There is no confusion. Because if you remember, the first line that I began with is the world of research is a maze. So there is an ambiguity in research. What is good research? What is ideal research? Just getting the degree is more important or not? I have, if I am very honest with you, I can tell you, heard people telling that to me, just completing the research and gaining a PhD matters. What quality I have done or how ethically I have done is unimportant. Any views on this? Anybody would like to share their views on this?
Participants can unmute themselves.
Yes, sir. Very good morning, sir. Sir, you are very right in saying so. We are living in this era where everybody is just fighting to survive. Employment is unemployment is very high, and many of us are forced to be researcher because we don't have any other jobs to do. So
Exactly.
somebody get a scholarship, fellowship, and different programs, fundings from various institutions. So in these cases, one might have that kind of opinion that I am here to get a job, I'm getting my salary, that's fine for me. It doesn't matter how I'm getting.
Exactly. And,
But that's not right, sir.
no, it is absolutely not right. But this is the approach. In this online, there is a researcher who is just joining PhD telling me, sir, how fast can I complete my research? So see, to him, knowing is less important. The speed of completing the degree has become more important. What would you say? This has been an approach, and the person is a college teacher and not
Yes,
less
sir.
than 30 years of age. He's not unemployed. The person I'm talking about is not unemployed. He's a full-time college teacher, an assistant professor. And he tells me that how fast, sir, I can complete my research, PhD, and get the degree. So to him, it's not about, any new job that he wants to do or something, but it's just about finishing. People are rushing. There is a hurry. There is a haste.
So, sir, I think advancement in the career may be another reason that if I complete it as early as possible, so I can get other opportunities like I can become associate professor or something. So they may be in hurry also.
And an increment. And an increment possibly. That is also one of the reasons. How
Good
fast I
Yes,
morning,
can,
sir.
sir.
Sure, sir.
an increment.
So
But
maybe, but this is ethically is the wrong practice. But the new education policy emphasizes that each and every associate professor has to write at least three paper or more PhD scholar under their umbrella, so that they can reach the next level of associate professor and then professor. So the first thing the teacher that is asking how fast I can complete my research is ethically wrong, because he is not contributing to the society. He just contributing his own
to himself.
benefits.
Correct.
Yeah, himself, sir.
Exactly. He has no, his stakeholder is he himself. He thinks that he is only surviving for his own benefit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. PhD or research world is not a calculation world. You cannot calculate things in advance, benefits and costs like that. Now, as we move to our area, research misconduct, we need to know a new term. I don't know whether you are acquainted with it or not, called scientific misconduct. Now, this term has become very important nowadays, so we need to understand better, because it is the violation of the standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior in the publication of professional scientific research. So, as we do research, we need to publish them and present papers, and that is the reason we often encourage, at least my scholars, I say, that whenever you complete one segment, maybe the pilot study, maybe the review of literature, you can at least present a paper somewhere. Now, what happens is, if you make a good presentation, you get good ideas, you get good inputs from others, which can really be helpful in improving in your domain of research and quality of work that you're doing. Research misconduct would also mean, to a great extent, fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, and violation of authorship rules in proposing, performing, or reviewing research, or in reporting research results. Okay, just you can read the line again, and I would bring your notice, draw your attention to the words fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, and violation of authorship rules, and what are the ways in which they can contribute towards, their research work in a proper manner. We know that this data fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, and violation of authorship rules or whatsoever can happen at every stage of the research process, right from your review of literature to your data collection, data gathering, to your recording, tabulating, and ultimately analyzing, reviewing, and publishing. That is in the entire process of dissemination of scientific knowledge. And these are the common reasons why scientific misconduct occurs. The most important and undeniable reason is academic or career pressure. We are all burdened with so much of work and responsibility. COVID-19, since 2020, and almost it's now 2 years, more than 1 year, 9 months, has made our lives very limited. And we are all rushing, and our screen times have multiplied. So we are under academic pressure, publication pressure, and there is a tendency among people to compromise on quality. And I don't know, possibly people 20 years back had aspirations of doing PhD at a later stage. I know a researcher today, she is a very accomplished professor of management at the University of Calcutta. She did her self-guided PhD. She is the first PhD degree holder in the Department of Commerce and Management of the University of Calcutta to have completed self-guided PhD. But she did her PhD possibly quite late than we can comprehend even today. She did her PhD when she was in her mid 40s because she told me, like, since I teach at the University of Calcutta, I had interacted with her on several occasions, and I remember her telling me that, I felt that the first 10 years I should focus on my teaching and really innovate myself and establish myself as a teacher and earn that maturity by the time I am in my, say, mid 30s, to understand how should I approach a PhD and not just be a fresher into rushing to do PhD earlier the better without really having that knowledge after coming out from the master's classes of what a PhD degree is all about. There are personal desire for fame or plum positions. You know that it's the same thing that people aspire to get into higher positions, and because they aspire to do so, they feel that if they do a PhD early, they would possibly be able to reach that zenith of career. There is a sloppy science related to something very unscientific, something which possibly will not give them the benefit that they aspire for. Obviously, one cannot deny is financial gain. Financial gain that one would expect to get out of the research that one completes. It can be a project, because today people also pursue projects in a much better manner. So that also can sometimes be done. Inability to determine right from wrong. Okay, so it's like sloppy science, same thing, inability to determine right from wrong. So what is the right method? What is scientific? What is non-scientific? Misuse of statistics. Many people do misuse of statistics. I was one a conference chairperson in a session in an international conference, and I saw that the researcher was who was presenting the paper possibly did not have any idea of as simple as hypothesis testing, and the null hypothesis H0 was taken up as an alternate hypothesis, and the alternate hypothesis H1 was taken as the null hypothesis. And based on the faulty hypothesis and some faulty techniques of statistics, the person came to conclusion. And surprising was that the research paper was accepted for presentation. And when I told the organizers, I felt very bad to tell this to the organizers. The reply we got is, sir, actually, we did not get enough papers to be presented in the conference, so we did not reject any paper. We accepted all the papers that were submitted for the conference. Can you imagine? This was, I'm speaking of my experience, 14 years of experience, and 8 years, 9 years as researchers and guiding scholars, and everything I have obtained. So I thought sometimes let's speak out our mind, because we are talking of a topic where only the good things should not feature. The bad experiences also I should share, because that would be a signal, that would be an indicator of the fact that where we have to be careful, where we need to draw our line. And finally, cultural differences. And we cannot ignore, in a country like India, where unity and diversity, they both exist, there are issues with regard to that. There are people who are not that responsible, accountable. And there are, culturally people who possibly don't get that access or opportunity to information and data, or someone to show them the right path. And I can tell you that there was a time when many researchers were condemned on grounds that they were either plagiarized or there was some monetary or financial issues reported in conducting the research. Anybody would like to speak of any experience of scientific misconduct?
Participants are requested to unmute themselves and share their experiences if they have in this domain.
If anybody has any views to share, please interact. Okay, so like I said, we need to understand what publication ethics is all about. Only then we can understand the difference between what is ethical and what is unethical, what is conduct and what is misconduct. And academic research, like I said, it includes many coordinated steps. Now, the publication committee, the Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE, we say COPE, is an international forum for editors and publishers of peer-reviewed journals that provide the code of conduct and best practice guidelines that define publication ethics and advises editors on how to handle cases of research and publication misconduct. And possibly this is an area that code of conduct is defined, code of conduct is given, and people are expected to follow that code of conduct in a very meticulous manner. Now, coming back to my core topic, what are the various forms of publication misconduct? And possibly these are some of the most common ones which we will possibly discuss, right from plagiarism to copyright infringement, duplicate, redundant publication, data fabrication, falsification, misconduct within the publication process, disputes with regard to authorship, peer review misconduct, and finally, manipulation of citation. Let us go into each one of them. Now, what plagiarism is, I think there are other speakers who have spoken on that. So I will not go in much detail on that. Just I'll give a one-line introduction to plagiarism as a representation of another's author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions of one's contribution without acknowledgement or attribution. See, ideas, you can always be inspired. But what the problem is, when you are copying someone's table, data, information, definition, without acknowledging the person. There is a concept called self-plagiarism. I don't know whether you're aware or not, but that also becomes an issue. In scientific research, people publish many papers, so there are different journals. So when sometimes one copies his own work already published and then represents the same in another research and later tells that I was not aware that my own research I cannot copy, I cannot have ownership, because intellectual property rights say that when you have published it, you are giving already the publication right to the publisher of that particular journal or book. So automatically, even if you are the author, you cannot do that. So ignorance is not always a reason. What do we mean by copyright infringement? It refers to the unauthorized use of someone's copyrighted work. It is the use of someone's copyrighted work without permission, thereby infringing certain rights of the copyright holder. What are the rights here? The right to reproduce, the right to distribute, the right to display or perform the protected work. You need permission for that. It's again intellectual property right and patent copyright. In law it is there, how they are sanctioned and what are the legal consequences of violation of those patent, copyright, etc. I was talking about plagiarism and self-plagiarism and how the ideas of another person, without giving credit to that person, reusing one's own research work can sometimes be highly problematic. And both plagiarism, whether it is others' work or your own work, if you duplicate that without permission, that is unacceptable in practice in the academic world in case of scientific literature. Both are unacceptable. What does it mean by a duplicate publication? Now, sometimes an author may have the tendency to reuse substantial parts of their own published work without referring or providing appropriate reference, which can range from publishing an identical paper in multiple journals to only adding a small amount of new data to a previously published paper. Duplication can take several forms: identical papers published in multiple journals, partial but substantial duplication by introducing small amounts of new data to a previously published article. We call it salami slicing. It's a new term, where one paper you published in 2001 and again another paper you're publishing in 2018, the content in one journal and in another paper presentation in a conference are completely identical. Or sometimes, I have once caught one of my student in postgraduate class changing the title and presenting almost the same paper. Some only sample size or something he has changed, and the entire format, the entire content, the research design, the research objectives was exactly the same. What do we mean by data fabrication? Now, fabrication is the invention of data or information. You fabricate, truncate. So sometimes in the process of data collection, fabrication means collecting a new set of data, replicating the original one. Most commonly fabricated documents are informed consent forms and patient diaries. You'll be quite surprised to know this is a medical science. A study in the year 2004 showed that fabrication is the second most common form of scientific misconduct, comprising of 22% of the studied cases. 22% of the cases they did fabrication, and 27% of the cases they labeled fabrication. That means what was already there that was given under a certain head or heading. Dangerous this part is called data falsification. You alter completely the data or information that you want to present and observe result or experiment. I can share another experience here. A company had given a group of researchers a project, and in the research project, it was on finance. In the research project, the objective of the company was to show that their books of accounts, particularly their assets and liabilities, they show a very pleasant picture. What in auditing it is done. But the group of researchers, when they got the data, they found out that the data or information that has been provided by the company is failing to reflect the picture which the company was trying to present, because it was related to CSR. I cannot reveal all the detail because of certain ethical boundaries that I myself should have, but it was on CSR, and the company was aspiring to get some funding from external stakeholders if they show that in the last 5 years their CSR initiatives have been very, very good. But the team of researchers found out that what the company was aspiring to show was not the same in reality. You know what was done? The entire data set was fabricated, falsified. The entire data set that emerged was falsified, and later on in one audit, this was detected. And don't ask me what happened. The outcome was very, very, unprofessional and undesirable for a reputed company to behave in this way. And when that team of researchers, of those 5 people, were asked to present their views as to why the data that was shown in the report and the original set of information did not match, then they said that they were under financial pressure from the company, who wanted them to not reveal the truth. And in case of finance, in case of accounting, there is a term many of you might be knowing. It is called window dressing. So all the books of accounts had been window dressed, and information, vital information that was needed to really show the picture of the company, was falsified. Data falsification is also the practice of manipulating research materials, equipment, or process, or changing or omitting data or results such that the research is not accurately represented in the record. And falsification, considered to be one of the most common form of scientific misconduct. In a study in China in the year 2006, these information are a decade old because the latest information are not available. I have checked the records, I have checked the researches, the exact data and information are not available. They are 10, 15 years old. But anyway, here the latest percentage is not important. It just shows, even in 2000, one more important thing is, in 2005, 2006, 2010, if such falsification used to happen, then today with the more and more growth of internet and technology, the number will possibly be double. So that is even a bigger warning for us. 40% of the investigated misconduct cases were falsification. What other things came there? It involved making changes, for example, in a set of results of an experiment that cannot be scientifically justified. What I said just now. So your hypothesis and experiment, as you can see here, if it gives you negative results, your paper is rejected in the dustbin. And if your experiment or result is giving positive outcome, your paper is submitted. Now tell me, what is the logic and what is the most common outcome? Is this what scientific research is all about? Yes, I would want some interaction here. Anybody would have similar experience or would like to share their experience?
Participants can unmute themselves, and certainly, sir, this is something which I also believe that there are instances where negative results are actually not accepted enthusiastically by many places where we submit our papers. So we must have something positive to show over there.
Absolutely, Siddharth. Absolutely. And this is what is happening. This is what is happening. This is something which we should be ashamed of, that if the results are not something that we would want, the paper gets rejected. How biased are we?
So, sir, there is no some kind of body who can control this thing.
Body for what? No, that is the
Some
peer review committee. The review committee, every conference, every journal, every
yes, sir.
book, everywhere it exists. Now, if the mindset, this is a problem of mindset, mentality, image, reputation,
Okay,
goodwill. Can you change that? You can't change mindsets. There cannot be any, external agency to change your mindset.
yes, sir.
What does an authorship dispute mean? It means conflict among collaborators which does not meet the definition of research misconduct, which may include who should be named as an author or contributor. Sometimes there are issues with regard to who has contributed and who has not contributed. That is one more issue, one major issue. Order of authorship. Who should be number one author? Who is number two author? Big problem. Expectations or contributors, what they have in case of a project, what they would like to gain. Intellectual property or confidentiality issues affecting publication. Someone who did the entire work is not acknowledged. Somebody who did not do but gave some money, monetary contribution, that person is given all the importance. Don't you think these happens? Yes, it happens. Whether we accept or not, it happens. What is a peer review misconduct? You know, it is called a gold standard for research public evaluation. We say that peer reviewed journal, blind review has been done. And we also as researchers have realized that we can really manipulate a research. Sometimes even the editorial board is manipulated. I don't want to go further because that will really question the integrity. Peer review is considered to be a gold standard. It is a stepping stone to publication. And once a paper receives a positive recommendation from peer reviewers, the chances of publication skyrocket. You know, we are given that ethics. We are taught that ethics. But then what happens? Sometimes researchers become so desperate, they resort to, change the system, get into the system, start calling up people. I have experienced it, requesting that please include my name, or please, see that my paper is allowed for presentation because I need some points in the next few months. I'm to apply for a promotion. And the reason is very simple. You cannot deny extreme competition in the academic world today. We are all victims of that competition. It is forcing the researchers to rapidly increase the volume of their publication output, to secure promotions, to secure grants, to get the benefit, favor of your superiors. To sometimes get a salary hike. All these have become very, very commonplace. The next thing, no less dangerous, is the manipulation in terms of citation. Manipulative citation is characterized by behaviors that are intended to inflate citation counts for personal gain, where the true citation is not stated, just for the purpose of gaining something. And to do it in a very coordinated manner.
Sir, can you explain a little bit on this thing more? How can we
have
manipulate the citation?
What they do is, it is not the original record that they manipulate. The representation gets manipulated. So the citation number, see, sometimes it is not possible to verify, counter verify, cross check. The world of academics is based on integrity. Do you think every information we give in our CV, every information that we give somewhere can be verified? Is it possible?
No, sir, it's not
Don't you
verified.
think that as a researcher, when you're writing that you have written 15 papers, you have presented 20 papers, these 5 are in your top citations and all that, is it possible to easily verify individually? And let me tell you that if there's a post of an assistant professor and there are 50 applicants, it is possible to verify each one of them. It doesn't happen. There are always filters through which people will get into the system. And that is an epic.
People used to increase the citation also, na?
Yeah. Because sometimes when you are a person of integrity, you would possibly not get into it. But there are people who have, sometimes they don't do a certain course and they change. There is an instance, I'm not naming the university, where a person did not do a certain course, a short-term course. He got hold of a certificate of a person. He just changed the name, the place where the name is written, and put his own name there, and then submitted a Xerox copy of that certificate, which was not verified. Till now, it is not verified. I am not, have no intention of putting anybody into trouble, but I was shocked. It was almost like 24 hours. This whole thing was in my mind that if people are doing this now, then what is the next level of unethical behavior that they are going to indulge in? And the person calls himself or herself a teacher. What that person is going to teach in the classroom? Who will be his students? And there are other motivations involved. What are the penalty? What is the penalty? Removal from editorial board, removal or rejection of journal, not accepting your paper. But is this enough penalty? This is not enough penalty. So what should be done? Journal should develop policies, procedures, standards to determine self-citation thresholds. Provide educational resources to support best practice. What is the best practice in research? And establish procedures to respond to potential misconduct. When such misconduct happens, how do we take it forward, respond to it? There may be instances where self-citation and requests for citations are legitimate. Coercive citation, another important thing happening. It is an editor of a scientific academic journal forces an author to add spurious citations to an article before the journal will agree to publish it, just to inflate the impact factor. And in the process, what happens? The scientific reputation of the journal gets boosted. Now, if this is not done by the top journals, I'm telling you, but there are moderate degree journals, they are doing all that to remain, sir. Sometimes they ask for fees to publish. They do all these things. All the controversy with regard to, UGC care list journal, last 2 years I have seen, once the care list was published, many journals wanted to get into and get out of it. And they did it for obvious reasons, for benefits. A 2012 survey indicated that about 20% of academics working in economics, sociology, psychology, and multiple business disciplines have experienced some form of coercive citation. How do we deal with non-human subjects in research? Use of animals. Those who are from mathematical science, biological science, physical science, medical science, they may have experienced all this. APA guidelines have been given for using non-human subjects in research. how you need to treat animals so that they do not feel discomfort, they are not harmed. I've already spoken about fraud and plagiarism, so I'm not going to repeat that. But it is a question of scientific integrity. From scientific misconduct, we are moving towards scientific integrity. As we are moving further in our discussion, we need to reach a world of scientific integrity where we really need to stop, prevent, compromise on the unethical issues that are happening in the world of research. How do we get a project which needs ethical approval? I will come to the examples now. Use of human participants, use of products of human participants. How do we need animal participants? How do we deal with them? What work do they impact? Social science research is done on red light areas. How do we deal with those people? How do we keep them anonymous? A sociology researcher of my institution completed a PhD 2-3 years back on exactly this area. Trafficking of women, particularly to those areas. And what was the impact? The social impact, human trafficking. And the researcher and the supervisor, they need to get an ethical approval, a disclaimer in this regard. What are the research ethics principles? Harm to research participants must be avoided. Protection of the dignity, rights, safety, and well-being of all actual and potential applicants, participants should be kept in mind. Research should be designed, reviewed, and undertaken to ensure adherence to high standards of quality, integrity, ethical propriety, governance, and legal compliance. Researchers and participants must normally be informed as fully as possible about the purpose, methods, and intended possible use of research, what their participation in this research entails, and what benefits and risks are involved. The research participants must consent to participate in a voluntary way, free from coercion. We just did coercion of citation. Any undue influence, manipulation. Use of inducements to encourage participation must be carefully monitored. Is someone doing it intentionally, deliberately? How do you maintain the confidentiality of information? How do you respect the anonymity when you see some illegal behavior is discovered? And last but not the least, the independence of the research must be clear. Okay, so there should not be any intrusion into that. And any conflicts of interest or partiality must be disclosed, if anybody has done so. Publication of research results must be done fairly and with the public good taking priority over private. Now, these are some of the, for ethical clearance, what the panelists need to know about the researcher. Background, data collection, nature, who are the participants, where will the data collection occur, how long and where the data will be stored, what is the purpose. All that would come under this portion. There is a route of ethical clearance. How we get that approval. Because of paucity of time, I am not going into the detail of the procedure, but there are 3 levels: ethical clearance, ethical release, and ethical approval. And as researchers or scholars in the field of ethics, If you are interested, you can really go deeper into it. Ethical issues in the use of in-depth interviews, literature review, and discussion. How should they prepare their literature review? To identify their research gap. What are the questions in an interview schedule that one must encounter, so that they can really get into the root of the research problem? They can design their research question in the most efficient manner. And these are the common forms of ethical violations. We have already done it under the heading discussion on publication misconduct. Now let us go into what happens mostly. Some recent examples. This is again in 2002. A pioneering physics paper is suspected for all kinds of data manipulation. They indulged in such kind of data manipulation. Question of research integrity. In the Nature journal, Nature journal, it was reported that paper trail reveals references go unread by citing authors. A massive case of fraud by a chemist in India, where he plagiarized 70 research papers in a wide variety of journals in Western scientific journals between 2004 and 7. Some editors, journal editors, left reeling by the incident, say it is one of the most spectacular and outrageous cases of scientific fraud that they have ever seen in reality. Another example in scientific research, in terms of gene pool, what happened and how it was misrepresented. Now, how do journals detect and handle problem papers? Because we are talking of publication, we must know what are their policies, not just software. They go for review, information that they obtain from other editors. The literature review search for related papers submitted by the editors. Sometimes it is just withdrawal of a paper from publication. They don't allow that. Banning authors from publication in the journal for 3 to 5 years. Common punishment. Informing co-authors and editors of related journals of the decision or action taken of that person. And for less serious cases, it's just like a warning, placing the author on a watch list for careful examination of their submissions prior to requesting reviews. Now, this is really something that should raise our eyebrows. 86.2% recorded similarity between original article, duplicate article. 73.1, the average name of citations in terms of shared reference. That is also possible. (47) 22.2% duplicate cited original as a reference. That is also possible. 71.4% of the manuscripts pair lists share at least one highly similar or identical author. (42% contain incorrect calculations, data inconsistencies, and reproduced or manipulated photographs. And 93% of the original authors were not aware of the duplicate's existence, did not know that a duplicate publication of this nature at all existed. And 212 pairs of articles with signs of potential plagiarism were chosen for this study. So this is a sample. Sample based on which the study was conducted. Now look at this part. What did the authors say to defend their work? Everybody tends to justify their actions. I have no idea why pieces are similar, except that I am sure I do not have a good enough memory. So somebody may say that they have forgotten why this similarity is happening. I was not involved in this article. I have no idea of why my name is included. So after something is detected, this is the answer also people can give. This article was mainly done by a young fellow, Dr. So-and-so. I made corrections in the text, so I'm not responsible. So the person completed the article. Unfortunately, Dr. So-and-so died this year in January, so we can't ask him for the reasons. Somebody may say, I am not a native English speaker, so I have problems in expressing my ideas. You and other English language speakers are lucky from the point of view. I don't understand the language of the article. Somebody may say, to be honest, I was not aware of the fact that I need to take prior permission of the authors of the original article. So ignorance, again ignorance. As such, I am facing difficulties and hardships in my personal life. So now there are a lot of pressures that the person has to deal with. And another strange reason, the corresponding author has been my teacher, and a very good one at that. So very good relation with the teacher I had shared, from whom I have learned many things. My respect for him was of the utmost level until I found out that he has been plagiarizing papers from all over the world. So there are instances or cases where the person is a teacher. So what is the conclusion here? As simple as it is. The increasing availability of scientific literature on the World Wide Web has proven to be a double-edged sword. Why? It has its boon and it has its bane. It has both. Allowing plagiarism to be most easily committed, while simultaneously enabling its simple detection through the use of automated software. Now, it's often said, research is a personal activity undertaken by a public intellectual. It is not everybody's forte. It is not everybody's domain. And research is value-laden. Research is value-laden. There are benefits that the research would entail. So what is the key to ultimately successfully doing research is, I would say, self-examination and self-regulation. And if both are done well, the purpose of research is achieved. And if that is not taken care of, we lose focus. The misconduct, the harm that we do to society for our personal benefits, what is called egoism, and our research outcomes all suffer very, very badly. Our research outcomes are eclipsed. Okay, so on that note, I end my presentation and discussion, and I would request the organizers to take over and maybe go for a little interaction on the topic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your great presentation on this topic. And I'll take this opportunity to ask one question which has always haunted me since the time I have entered into academics. And the question is a bit long, sir, so kindly do
Yeah,
bear with me.
please go ahead.
So my question is, sir, how much copyright is too much copyright? Uh, because this question is regarding ethics, regarding access to copyrighted material. What I want to say and ask is that Elsevier owns around 18% of world's research output, and there are other established publishers as well. So there is an increased monopolistic practice where research is logged into behind paywalls, and hefty amount is needed to publish in established journals, and only a select few can afford it. And I'm particularly thankful for websites like SkyHub, which made it possible for me and many others like me to access copyrighted research in the first place. But at the same time, when I joined my PhD, I remember many faculty members saying to me that, okay, we will show you how to access this research paper, but do not, acknowledge this publicly. So this is something which I wanted to ask, like how much copyright is too much copyright?
See, Siddharth, thank you very much for, this is not a question, but this is an observation, I think. Okay. And this is your experience, your personal experience. This is your observation. So there is no limit to copywriting. That's my opinion, considering to be what is enough, what is too much, but something which should ultimately be based on the purpose for which the research is done. See, copyright or protection or, keeping a watch is always important because we are talking of ethics. But how much we should do so depends on the person who is taking up, who is conducting the whole process of research. So there is no limit to doing that because people will eventually resort to some other ways of doing it. That is always true. Human beings' endeavor is unlimited. So how much you try to protect and give copyright, there are other, ethical issues there, but it should be done to the extent possible that can the purpose, the motive, the motivation behind the research can be achieved and obtained. That should be the limit, I feel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. There is one question in the chat box, sir, where a participant, Ankita Kumari, is asking, is there any institutions at the state level that could help us in handling and disclosing of scientific misconduct and unethical practice in published articles?
No, institutions are not there. What is there is research bodies like, say, for example, different organizing committees of different conferences. At least in West Bengal, I have seen they have formulated some research committees, for those conference papers. So there is no universal institution as such. There are committees and there are agencies and there are bodies which are formulated, formed for the purpose of just keeping a monitoring check, keeping a vigilance on that particular work. But overall, there is no such thing. But we as academicians, we have our own responsibilities also, so that we can really be able to promote quality research and promote ethical research. But the onus is completely on us. We cannot deny or our own responsibility in doing it.
Thank you, sir. I'll now invite our participants to ask any questions which they might be having, and they can also unmute themselves and ask, and alternatively, they can put their question in the chat box as well. So participants can make this session.
I would prefer asking because, I can see them. At least switch on your video and, we can interact for a minute. I think that matters more. So just
Certainly,
putting
sir.
in the chat box is so artificial. Yes, Naveen.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, suppose as we are the MBA or commerce background, so we are not in the mainstream of the use of statistical data and how to manipulate or how to do some kind of formula based which support our research.
Statistical
So in
tools,
that,
basically statistical
yeah,
tools.
statistical tools. So we are not much aware because at the MBA level we study the common statistics, which is, as you know, that the skewness and other things all, and not beyond that. But the things when we see the research paper of the IEEE and Scopus, and we found different kind of statistical tools used by them, and we are not aware of them. So what we do for that, we should take the help of some statistician, or we should do use of some kind of software like SPSS and others, Microsoft Excel and other kind of thing.
Yeah. So see, I would tell you, this is my honest, submission to all of you, that don't just always be obsessed with the techniques that are used in the top ranked journals, the ABDC journals and all that, Scopus indexed ones. You first focus on, as a researcher, when you are doing research or when you're intending to do a PhD, you first see that the basic tools and techniques of research are known to you, the statement of the research problem, research objectives, how do you do review of literature, how you identify the research gap, these are done. And then you go by univariate, bivariate, multivariate forms of analysis, and then you learn the advanced forms. So if you do it step by step, I think your understanding would be better. If you are not very conversant with the world of research and you directly go on reading research papers that are, of the world class standards, particularly in Scopus index journals, I think there'll be great difficulty for you to understand, and there'll be a fear, and only external help will, this is the only resort that you have. But if you learn it stage by stage, because see, at the MBA level, it is true, very true, you have said that the theoretical portion is taught, you are more oriented towards the examination but not the application. But when as a researcher you join the field, you need more application for your PhD. So if you join workshops, they are not adequate. Okay, just a presentation being shown or a hands-on in Excel or in the computer being shown, they are not enough. So you have to take your own time and you have to give your own effort in doing so. And going to reading journals at the beginning will not be a wise step. Possibly if you read the basics of any research methodology book, or attend a course, I think from there, if you go on to higher standards of journals, then you will be better able to understand the meaning of that, utility of that research, because tools and techniques are only as good as when they're applied in the proper manner. Otherwise it will just be a meaningless exercise for you.
So there is any kind of course in the Swarnam, as the IITs and different Indian institutions
See,
organize
there are
programs.
different
So there is
courses
any kind of
parallelly going
course
on.
of them for them,
No, there is no such
for
fixed
us?
course. There is research methodology for the beginners and research methodology at the advanced level. So what I would suggest you, if you go for the beginner level research methodology, the basic research methodology, whether it is
Yeah,
by
I am the
SWAM,
beginner, sir.
yeah, beginner. So whether by SWAM or by UGC, that way if you can do, I think that can really help you. And if you have my email ID, you can keep my email ID. I can give you information as and when possible to do so. So that I can help you with regard to that. I can put that in the chat box. So that,
Okay, then. Thank you, sir.
okay, any help, whatever you need, I can
Uh,
provide to any
Definitely,
information.
sir. I will ask.
Yeah, please say.
Thank you, sir.
sorry for intervening, sir. Here.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Sorry for intervening here.
Yeah, please say.
Participant that he asked that he asked the questions, the any kind of institutions that are prevalent in the India or world, that he are banning on the scientific misconduct activity. I think I have some knowledge at some extent level, as per my knowledge basis. UNO has some wings to curb
UNO,
the
yeah, UNO has, yeah.
different different number of misconduct that is scientific fraternity group peoples, and as well as there are so many number of universities in India as well as in the other country of the world.
Countries
They
of the
are
world, yeah.
having the internal quality assurance cells.
No,
Through
but
that
that is
cell,
for their own
through that
university.
cells,
He is asking, his question
uh,
was meant for whether it is done for outsiders or not. His question, that is that IQAC is existing for that own institution only. But the person's
sir,
question was basically whether it's
sir,
meant
I
for
would like to
outsiders.
make a short while discussion with you based on their question is that I think that UNO has some wings to curb that activity, scientific misconduct
Correct.
activity, as well as that there are so many number of university in India as well as in the other country also. They are curbing on such activity that is engaging in the scientific misconduct group through their IQAC, internal quality assurance cells. Shall I am sure or not? Please be confirm on it.
Hello, yes, any other question?
Uh, sir,
Yeah, good
Ma'am,
morning,
sir,
sir.
there is a question.
actu-
What are the best way to maintain confidentiality in a research study? We have got this question in the chat box
Okay.
by Miss Supriya Singh, who is a PhD research scholar.
Confidentiality is the most essential part of any research activity. So the best way to maintain confidentiality is to keep your, purpose and your state research problem and your research objectives to the level who are very trustworthy within your own circle, who are engaged in research, and share the findings only when you can really come to some after you have published the matter. Okay, so only then you can do that, and not to just share the soft copy or share the data set or share the research objectives with others, because otherwise falsification or manipulation or replication of your research in other parts of the world are possible. So you have to maintain that confidentiality among yourself and your research team, so that the misuse of research information for the purpose for which you are doing it is not broken at all.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Mr. Anand Sharma. He is asking that in case any researcher has just discovered a mathematical error in his paper that has been accepted for publication in a reputed journal, and the paper also has passed by peer review, the error does not affect the overall result of his research, but it is potentially misleading. In
Okay.
order to avoid embarrassment, can he decide to ignore the error so that a scientific misconduct or fabrication or falsification is not raised? It is related to honesty in research, this question.
I have an experience to share. Yes, this was something that had happened to my research team also once before. So what we did was we withdrew the paper, we made the changes, and then asked the publishing house to publish it in the next edition. So that is what was done for us, but not to withdraw it completely, because it is an embarrassment. It is something that you will not feel good about. So honestly, if you know your mistake, you should, what you should inform them through email is you want to withdraw the paper temporarily for some rectification. And once the rectification is done, they would possibly review it again and then publish it in the next edition. So maybe just a waste of time for 3 months or 6 months would happen, but that is the best way to get it corrected, but not keep the error.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ankita Kumari has raised her hand. If she can unmute herself
Yes,
and
Ankita.
ask her question.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good
It's
morning.
Sankita Kumari, PhD scholar from Mahatma Gandhi Central University. Sir, the way you explained is excellent.
Thank you.
But I have one doubt. Suppose someone sent research article to manipulate data smartly. Then how does a reviewer know that the data has been manipulated?
See, it is how the reviewer knows. There are certain smart ways, like how does a teacher know that the student has not done something and he and she is stating that? So it is experience. So how the researcher knows, because there are certain areas if they are questioned, that is why the reviewer comments are given. So if the reviewer is not clear about something, the reviewer can pinpoint those areas of clarification or doubts. So that is the way it is really done. And if there is something which is contradictory, in terms of the objectives and findings, then that is written in the reviewer's report that this is found to be contradictory. So that is the way it is done. It is just experience, and it is just the information set, the methodology that is followed, that is checked. And that can be a very, very interesting tool, important tool, in which you can check the accuracy of information.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Siddharth, so
And
if there are no other questions, anybody else?
no, sir. Is there any other participant who will like to ask a question?
Siddharth sir, in last, I would like to ask a question to sir to them.
Sure,
If
sir.
you give me
Please,
the due
please
permission.
ask your question quickly, sir, because we are
Yeah.
approaching the end of the
My
session. It is
my
already
question is
12.
not based on any. My question is not subjective, but my question is based on experience basis on
Yeah.
their sir.
Please
Sir,
say.
actually you are Indian born, I think, and you are
Yeah.
working in UK. You are
Me?
working in yeah, yeah.
No, 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 no. I'm working in India only. I have some degrees from the
Okay,
university.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. You have done
Okay.
PhD from UK, and you are
Okay.
still working in India also.
Okay.
It is a good thing for you as well as us for also.
Thank you. Thank
Is anything you perceiving the quality of taughts to our Indian professors, a quality of researcher of our Indians, lacuna to our
What is the
Indian professor
lacuna?
and
Yeah.
Indian
The
researcher
lacuna
in
is
comparing.
the lacuna that I have seen, the international experience that I've gained and what I've seen right now, the lacuna is simply about the mindset that we tend to think that we are not that superior to what the foreigners are, universities of the Western countries are. We are as good as them. Only thing is we don't have access to information, access to copied softwares, access to journals. That is where some of the colleges and universities of India are still lacking. So if we get the resources, I would say access to resources, but otherwise the mindset has to be something that they are not superior, we are equally good with them, and the professionalism is lacking. So little bit of professionalism in terms of research, if we can inculcate, I think we are doing very good job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I'll
you.
take this opportunity now to close this session, and I'd like to
Can a
thank our
picture be
resource
taken?
person for this
Siddharth, have
session.
you taken some pics? If all can switch on their videos for a minute and we can take a concluding picture together.
Sure, sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah,
I'll request all the participants to switch on their cameras if possible at their end so that we can have a quick snapshot of this session.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Participants
you.
can
Thank you.
switch on their cameras momentarily. Yeah. So I'll take this opportunity to thank our resource person for this session, Dr. Shivaji Banerjee sir, for his highly great presentation, I must say, an in-depth session on this relevant topic. You, sir, were a very welcome change because you have not only told us what to do, but you also have revealed what is done.
Yeah.
So this was a welcome change from the sessions which we had. And certainly, sir, with new thrust over all these ethical issues, I must say that the young research scholars who are attending this session, as well as the academicians who are attending this session, must have learned immensely. And I'd also like to thank our Honorable Dean, Professor Pavnesh Kumar, who is the course coordinator, along with Dr. Sapna Sugandha and Dr. Alka Lalhal, who are the course co-coordinator of this program, along with all the faculty members of the department who guide us every time during the organization of such an event. I thank all the participants as well for their involvement who make these sessions a two-way communication, and they make the session interactive as well. With these words, on behalf of the School of Commerce and Management Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, I like to express our sincere gratitude once again to Dr. Shivaji Banerjee sir and all those who have joined us today. And we'll be again joining in the evening at 6:30 p.m. today. Not 6 p.m. but 6:30 p.m. Today for our evening lecture. With your
Thank you
due
very much.
permission now, sir,
Thank you,
we can.
Siddharth. Looking forward to meeting your university, teams again in future for some academic endeavor.
Certainly, sir. Certainly, sir. We look forward to your association with us, sir, with all the events which we'll be having in the future as well.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely. Always welcome. And to
certainly, sir. Thank
going
you, sir.
personally to Mahatma Gandhi Central University. Okay, that is also something
Absolutely,
in future.
absolutely, sir. We look forward to hosting you, sir, in our university
Campus.
campus.
Absolutely. Not online. Always online is not good. Always online is not good.
We do believe that, sir. Certainly, sir.
Absolutely.
Physical
Thank you.
communication
Thank
is
you so much.
something which cannot be substituted by internet mediums.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Have a
With your
great
due
day. Thank
permission
you
now,
all.
sir, we can bring this session to a
Yeah,
close,
yeah.
sir.
Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.